Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion on AI and the changing workplace. I'm Quentin Hardy. I'm the head of editorial at Google Cloud, and in just a moment, you'll be hearing from Christina Barr, Vice President of Duet AI at Google Workspace, and Tricia Davis-Muffett, Senior Director of Customer Marketing at Google Workspace. Both our guests have extensive experience in the technical, business, and personal dimensions of both collaborative workplace tools and artificial intelligence, including general artificial intelligence, which has been rather a subject of the past few days. And we'll be drawing on that to discuss the essential opportunities, necessary skills, and professional concerns associated with bringing this revolutionary technology into the workplace. We don't have a super full room, even though the session was sold out. You get a little third-day drop-off. So we may just turn it into a little bit of a conversation with the audience. We know Next draws a lot of brilliant and engaged people, and so I'm going to include plenty of time for audience questions. Maybe one of you wants a 5-minute AI makeover. These are your people. Let's begin. Let me set the stage by asking this question. How many people here, I think a few of you, certainly me, remember life before the internet? Very good. Wow. My people. Life before mobile devices? Yes. Now, who can imagine working and going back to that world? Nobody gets to raise their hand if they've checked their smartphone in the last 15 minutes. It's an essential part of life. And that's the point. The point here is not whether life is better or worse because of this technology, though I think it's better overall, and I'm sure most of you do, but that great technologies very quickly become essential in work and life. One can't realistically imagine a world that moves forward without smartphones, online life, computation on a large scale. I mean, the same way you can't imagine life without radio or film or refrigeration. Both of today's guests believe, as I do, that we are in a moment of very rich opportunity. One of those rare moments when a new technology, in this case AI, and specifically Gen AI, is becoming that kind of an essential technology. And in a very short time, not many years, it will be hard to imagine a world where you are not working with it and encountering it on a regular basis. The key reason is that AI enables an exceptionally natural and effortless interaction between people and machines so that they can request complex personal computation, whether in communicating or planning or creating or a host of other activities, and have answers back in moments. It's almost as if, over the past 70 years or so, the distance between computers and people has grown closer and closer. That people had to act like computers originally, wiring them and then interacting and acting results, or doing punch cards where every single hole had to be exactly right. But computers got a little faster and a little better, and they were able to act a little bit more in a people-y way, where you could have a command line or then object-oriented or pull-down. And of course, online and HTML made that distance even closer. And now, it's like talking, I wouldn't say exactly with a human, but like with an object that carries out tasks and responds in a natural way. And at every stage, there have been more developers, there has been more computation. There's no reason to think there won't be a new explosion of developers in all sorts of ways and contexts, while computers directly generate novel insights, ask questions, create new media experience alongside with people using creativity on whole new levels. We were talking about this just beforehand. These are very far-reaching implications, perhaps nowhere more than in the workplace. And even in these early days, we're seeing new and more effective ways to reach clients, to serve customers, to organize work, to write quicker, to classify and use information better, much else besides. Which is not bad considering this whole thing got rolling like last October. Pretty good. So to be this early on the curve of a new and essential technology is a great opportunity. It's our chance to think about AI and how it will change the nature of work and collaboration, what new skills may become essential, where companies will move quickly and where they may struggle, and how this will affect areas of business like security, regulation, or privacy protection. And that's enough out of me. Let's turn to our panelists for some information, and to you as well for some ideas perhaps, or some sharp questions that you wish to push them. Nothing is out of bounds.
Well.
Christina, I mispronounced your name. It's Bear.
Oh, no worries,
I apologize.
No worries,
I did catch it. But I want to start by asking both of you, just talk a little bit about your background and how that background, what you've been doing for many years, affects the way you see AI coming into the workplace.
Sure, I'll start.
Yeah.
So I've been in technology marketing for many years, for decades, and before the internet, or sort of at the early days of the internet, before mobile devices. And so I've seen a lot of shifts, right? And I've been involved in helping bring a lot of those shifts to market. Interestingly, I got into technology marketing. It was not my first choice of career. I was originally going to be an English professor, and I'm a poet, and I still am a poet, but then I decided I like to, do things like pay rent and eat food, and so I thought maybe I would get a job writing in marketing. So it really was from that place of being good at writing and communicating, and being able to do that, and that's what brought me into marketing. And so I have to admit that I was a little resistant about having something else help write, since that's a very core thing to me. And I've been really interested to see this and have a lot of perspective on that.
So do you feel threatened?
I don't feel threatened now that I've used it. I did feel threatened when I hadn't tried it yet, but I don't feel threatened anymore.
Do you use it?
I do.
I use it as a tool. What do you do with it?
Well, so I use it for a lot of email responses. I use it for a lot of routine communication, or to get started on things where I need to pull a lot of information together. I'm not great at, I don't like sifting through things and pulling things from here and there to get started. What I like is the part that really is human creativity, right? The part where I'm trying to emotionally connect. So the more time I can spend doing that part, rather than all the pieces of pulling stuff together and have the right information and bring it into bullet points and make it fit in the right number of words, all those things. Those are things that I can absolutely use duet with, with my own writing to make it faster for me to get something done that's up to my standards.
There's a great line in the business: you can edit anything except a blank page.
Exactly.
It gets you started and you just make it better.
Yeah.
And I use it for writing, and I'll write a piece and then I'll put up a prompt that is the same theme and see what it does. And it's like a first editor. It helps me see if I missed anything. Is there part of this argument that I can then port over into mine? And so it's like a first assistant in that way. But Christina.
Yeah. So I'm currently the vice president of product inside of Workspace, responsible for Drive and our editors' products. So that includes docs, sheets, slides, and of course the investment that we're making in Duet AI and generative AI in those. And to me, this is a labor of love, right? I think there is drudgery in the world of productivity that we all face, right? Whether that is keeping on top of our massive inboxes and trying to produce decks and docs in an efficient way. And unlike Tricia, my background is engineering, right? I'm not a writer by any stretch of the imagination. So the fact that I can write out a couple of thoughts and use Duet AI to write complete sentences and make me seem more professional is not only a productivity booster, but it also, I think, it just helps me be, punch above my weight class, basically, right? It's how do I look better? The other one is, we do a lot of presentations internally, and I'm also not an artist, right? And so the fact that I can just enter in a couple of prompts very simply and then get these high resolution, very customized images that really hammer on the specific point that I want to make, that is amazing, right? Because now we're taking sort of the things that we don't love about our jobs and how ways to make us more efficient, and then, as Tricia mentioned, we can pour all of that into connecting with our teammates in order to produce cool stuff.
Yeah, so it's this is all the history of automation. This is all the history of improving productivity. That goes back to the abacus. How can I make this a more productive experience? And creativity also involves productivity.
Absolutely.
Like you get through, you got to grind through that. Talk about that in the context of software development.
Yeah.
How do you see that happening?
Yeah, so I mean, in our world, the way that we think about this is we wallow and deeply study the way that people are using our existing products, right? So how are you using docs? How are you using slides? Like what are these, what we call internally, these critical user journeys? And how can technology be applied to make those critical user journeys better? Right, more efficient. How do we improve customer satisfaction? And what I love about this this new era that we're in is like there's just been such an explosion of capabilities. Like the image generation models coming out from Google, like they are jaw-droppingly good, right? And so the fact that I get to work alongside some of like the best researchers and the best product developers in the world in order to incorporate those technologies directly into applications like what we have in Workspace. It's very humbling and also like very rewarding to see how quickly we can bring things to market just because of the structural setup of Google. So yeah, I think for us in product development and product building, it's really focusing on the user. We talk a lot about user love. We talk a lot about what people are trying to do, and then build towards that.
Any big change, any big new tool also results in a kind of organizational change. You know, when you had mainframes, you had operations research, you had these big vertical companies, lots of subdivisions and almost like files that people, you know, sort out and roles that were very specifically designed. You get to client server and it's a little more fluid. It's like an open plan office. Yeah. People are sharing information more. During the pandemic, it was an online world with a lot of video and much less formal, and we're still working through what that's going to mean. But let's talk a little bit about how you think generative AI will change roles in the workplace and how much change management people will encounter, and maybe offer people a few tips on how to get ahead of that, how to learn and start thinking about organizing in new ways.
Yeah, I think it can be very daunting for people when they see this capability appear or when they know that it's coming in their technology. And I think it's really important to think about the fact that the generative AI capabilities that we're bringing to market, I loved the way that Thomas framed it in the keynote, which was Vertex is for builders and Duet is for users. And so I think once you think about it that way and you think, okay, I now have access to this model. I don't have to really understand what's going on with the model. I have access to it and I can actually engage with it in the way that I was, working previously. So I think first there's getting over just the fear of using it. And I think especially for leaders and organizations, sort of pushing folks to say, did you try it this way? How much did you use it? Could you have done it, could you have used this to organize? Could you have used this to come up with, additional mood boards for that campaign? Could you have, come up with multiple variations on that copy, right? I think there's going to need to be some of that prompting and pushing within organizations. And then also, I think we'll have to probably rebuild a little bit of muscle of the level of granularity that people go to on review of things, because I'm sure there will be people who get a little sloppy with it and sort of are like, well, I got that draft done, so I'm going to just push it along, where somebody who might have been sort of just doing the creation of the first draft and expecting others to review, now that person can actually take it to the next level themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I think people, sort of learning that and taking on that responsibility of the second, third, fourth draft themselves before taking it on for further review.
Yeah, this changes everything doesn't mean everything has to change.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, those don't swap around. Right. And how people learn can take place in very kind of individual ways inside the organization, and then share that learning. Mm-hmm. And I was speaking with the CIO at US Steel yesterday, and they've actually started a Gen AI project with us. And it's around the maintenance of trucks inside iron ore mines. You know, it's not everything changing all at once, but in that one section, they see that as a good starting point to think about the process of learning and repair, and they think they'll shorten the time of repairs by 40%. So super good metric, you know, not going to tear everything apart to start there, going to be a lot of learning they can share that you then apply to training people elsewhere or helping them get answers elsewhere. It's a nice example. How do you see change happening with this?
I mean, as you were talking, I was just kind of reflecting about like how the culture in our teams have evolved with us using generative AI on a daily basis, and like in a lot of ways, it has brought the fun back into work, right? Like we have everything from like the goofy images that people will insert into slide decks. I feel like we are kind of like returning back to this like very googly, like playful approach to things. So as an example, you know, we did like a little contest of who can summarize an hour-long presentation the fastest in the most fun way. And so, you know, like, oh, and you only have 5 minutes to do it. Right? So like, how do you take a transcript, summarize it, and then turn it into a haiku, right? Or make it like a pirate, right? And I think like that type of application of generative AI has been like so fun for us and in the way that we're adapting it.
Well, and it also makes those, like I remember I was in that meeting where we were doing that, and it's like, oh, so well, first I would have to watch that hour-long video. Oh no, wait, I don't have to do that. I think there's some of that just like getting over what you expect, and you hear the task, and you're like, well, that's impossible what you're telling me to do.
Yeah.
I could never do that. And then you realize, no, it's actually not impossible. And I think that helped certainly open my eyes about, okay, tasks that I might have thought were impossible to accomplish on the timeline I was given, I need to rethink that.
Yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly. And I'll share one of the examples that a customer shared with us yesterday. A VP from Adore Me, one of our early trusted tester customers, was saying that they rolled it out to a bunch of different functions across their company, and one of them is their copywriters. So they are a direct-to-consumer product business, and they have typically, you know, written product descriptions for a ton of different things. And the copywriters, I think at first are like, you know, maybe potentially threatened by this idea of like using generative AI to do this. But then once they realize how much time that frees them up to go work on higher value things like that, like writing these product descriptions and trying to be creative every month is like not actually that fun, right? So like, how can you think about applying those higher level skills to these bigger marketing campaigns, to these like higher value initiatives?
I'm going to use that as a jumping off place.
Yeah.
And in the interest of efficiency, spare someone asking the question we're going to get, which is this taking people's jobs?
I don't think so. I think it's actually going to help people get more done faster. And there's an interesting study that an academic researcher did about copywriting. And it was looking at the increases in productivity for people across from very junior to very senior, more accomplished folks. And the folks at the top who were already very accomplished got maybe 10, 15% better by using generative AI. But the folks who were just learning, who were sort of at the bottom, became 50, 60% more effective. So it took people who were really struggling and made them good. And it took the people who were already really good and made them a little better. And so like to bring your entire organization up and to have people learning from something that it doesn't have to be humans constantly iterating with each other, and to be able to learn a significant portion of that yourself, I think is a game changer and will help people move forward in their careers faster.
Yeah, I feel the same way, right? I think Duet AI is a thought partner and a coach, right? Not a replacement. And so, you know, like the way that I think about it is like we went from like you have a hammer, and then you had a nail gun, and then you had a laser guided nail gun, right? But it doesn't sort of supplant the human that needs to build something, right? It's just like the tools get more advanced over time.
Well, yeah, let me tweak that and maybe answer the question a little. Yeah, maybe it is going to eliminate jobs in some ways, but it's not going to eliminate the need for human creativity.
Absolutely.
You know, it's very interesting. We're having this discussion around all jobs are going away when unemployment is like 3%, you know, and there's no sign of it happening, which is interesting. But I think, and I think you agree, that creativity happens inside every job, basically. You know, if you don't believe me, watch a wait person work for a higher tip. They are reading the person, they are reading the table, they are thinking about what they need, they are working it the whole time. And that's and you can see expressions of that in almost any kind of labor. You know?
Actually, the fact that you say that triggers something for me. Like, I 100% I feel the same way, and I feel like sometimes engineering kind of gets a bad rap for not being creative, right? Like the liberal arts is where you go to be creative, and then STEM is for like the logical nerds, right? And as a logical nerd, like, I mean, this is what problem solving is, right? And like the creativity that you need to apply there.
But you see some code that makes you sad, and then you see other code where you think, this person is clever. This is a thing of beauty, right? You know, so I don't take away from either one.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
There also was another interesting thing that came from some of our customers who were in the Trusted Tester program, who were working globally and had folks in all sorts of international locations who were all operating in the common language of English when they were talking between countries. And a surprising finding that we had was that it actually helped draw out folks who were not native speakers of English, who were sort of reluctant to share their ideas previously, or it would take them a long time to get that polished to the level that they wanted it to be. And with using the Duet in their email communications and their writing, they were able to level that playing field and bring more ideas out from folks who had really sort of hung back a little bit because they were worried about being able to communicate effectively.
And it's going to change things for managers a little bit in terms of expectations and bringing people along, getting teams together. And in that spirit of we're making things easier and we're encouraging creativity, but we're not making life problem-free. What problems do you think this will ease for managers? And let's get real here. What new challenges might this create?
Do you want to start?
Go for it.
So I think it'll ease. I think it will ease some of those impossible deadline challenges, right? Like we can move faster on things, and you can have a person own more of the project themselves without having to always bring in a lot of people at the beginning of a project. I think one of the problems and things that people have to watch is we can't be lazy about review, right? So if a lot of content is getting created, then we actually have to have a sharper eye on the review of things, on the questions we ask. We have to think more deeply about why something is being done, push it to the next level, because it'll be easy to get a lot of content created. So we can't get lazy about just, oh yeah, that's good enough, let's push it forward, right? We'll have to have a little bit more precision on those review cycles.
Well, that means better customer focus.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think what I'm most excited about is accelerating people's ramp time, right? And as they're onboarding. So one of the big investments that we're making in Duet AI is that helping it understand sort of your corpus, your what's in your Gmail, what's in your Drive and your organization's sort of like overall file storage. And so like why this is important is there's just so much institutional knowledge that's like locked up in slides or in various different documents. And and because of the way that we've architected all of this in a very like privacy forward way, we know who has access to what files. So you imagine you started a new company, right? And you're provisioned access to various different, documents like company strategy, et cetera, and being able to ask Duet AI, like what's a summary of XYZ project or, like this kind of thing. So you kind of like remove sort of like that embarrassing factor when you're new and you have to go ask a colleague and explain some random acronym. And I think that level of coaching is something that as a manager, I wish I had more time to do, right? To like really explain things to people. So I'm really excited about sort of like the advancements and the investments that we're making in corpus understanding.
Let's take it a little bit further down the stack. one of the areas I'd like you to address in terms of new challenges or things that need to be reviewed more is data itself. Data quality, data security, data privacy, reg stuff. Data quality and data labeling, whatever, are going to become so important, aren't they? Because it's almost like a manufacturing problem. If it isn't good at the beginning, it's going to get so expensive to fix it later on.
That's right.
So the focus on that for managers will be.
Yeah, that's right. So I think, again, this is where being the Google's cloud native architecture is going to become so important in this new era. So because everything was cloud from the beginning, you don't have a lot of data dispersed amongst like individuals' laptops and on-prem. And because of that, we have built-in privacy and security at the file and user level from the very beginning. So there isn't a lot of re-architecture that we need to do in order to kind of enable this next wave. So the way that Duet AI is working is that it's essentially just another feature. Like we're carrying over all of the data sovereignty, all of the security and privacy controls into this new era without, you know, a big step function in change. So I don't expect managers to, you know, need to change the way that they operate. In fact, actually, it's like you get this cool new capability without additional new work.
Right, but we have a lot of customers. Much of the world was not born in the cloud.
Yeah.
Are they going to be spending time focusing on their data in the right ways? I'm asking you for give them some advice. You know, companies like that. What do you think they need to do?
Come join us in Google Workspace.
Well, there's that, obviously.
I think that if you have data in on-prem systems, kind of like migrating to the cloud, I think is going to be exceptionally important in order to take advantage of this in a secure and compliant way.
Okay, I want to turn to questions in just a minute, but I want to ask you both, what have you learned and been surprised by watching customers interact with this technology? What have you seen them do that's kind of been most compelling?
I think I've been really impressed with just the level of creativity that we've seen. And I don't necessarily mean creativity like, of course, we've seen people write creative things and come up with creative imagery and all of that. But I mean the level of creativity in terms of reimagining how they might do things. So how they could respond more quickly to their customers, how they could build in prompts that they've figured out how to use to scale a problem or the solution to a problem much more quickly. Definitely that piece about the inclusion element of including folks who have been hesitant, whether it's because they're newer or they weren't confident in their communication, whether it's because of language or because of being from a different domain or whatever. I think that to me has been really exciting to see.
Yeah, the inclusion thing I think matters a lot, right? And I think it kind of fits into this larger bucket of how AI is helping us to be more human, right? Like how is it allowing us to connect more? And for our coworkers who weren't as much a part of the conversation for whatever reason, how can this technology help them do that? And again, I think it's also like as we look towards the future, it's the Duet AI in meetings, right? Like I think previously, we would designate someone as the note taker, as an example, right? But when we do that person is not meaningfully participating in the conversation. So how can we use technology to kind of take that so that we can do what we do best, right? How do we kind of be creative, work together in a collaborative way? Okay.
Well, Tricia, Christine, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.